So, folks, we have to talk about the fact that someone tried to kill the president of the United States. Allegedly. I find this really interesting on several different levels, but I do want to be upfront about this. I'm not copping to any of these ideas that this was staged or a hoax or a false flag. I think that's all nonsense. I gotta level with you. Like, are there a lot of weird things, a lot of weird coincidences around this? Absolutely. Is it staged? No. Like, I just think it's weird coincidences that are pretty easily explained. And I do want to say, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here, but I just don't think that whatever is going on here is the Trump administration doing a false flag on itself. It's a silly circus. It is. And I'll try and kind of disentangle it a little bit here. Okay. Let's take a look at just kind of an overview of what happened, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Here we go.
At 8:15 p.m., the President and First Lady arrived at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at Washington's Hilton Hotel. It's one of the biggest nights on D.C.'s social calendar, and a challenging one for security. Among the more than 2,300 attendees were a number of high-ranking officials, including the Vice President, 12 cabinet secretaries, and leaders of Congress.
Welcome to the 2026 White House Correspondents' Dinner.
At 8:34 p.m., one floor above the ballroom, security camera footage shows the suspect rushed through the security checkpoint. The checkpoint is equipped with a weapon-detecting magnetometer and guarded by several agents. They quickly drew their weapons and pursued the suspect. It would later be revealed that he was armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives. 30 seconds later, back downstairs in the ballroom, several shots can be heard. But the president and others don't immediately react. 10 seconds after the first shots, the First Lady and guests appear to notice something is wrong. One agent moves to stand behind the president, while on the opposite side of the dais, several agents quickly evacuate Vice President Vance. Nearly 20 seconds after the first shots, as attendees hide beneath tables, agents crowd the president and begin pulling him off stage.
Now, some people have pointed to the fact that, they didn't get Donald Trump out of there really fast as, a suspicious thing. It's not really that suspicious. He's, a billion years old. He's senile as hell. He doesn't understand that there's any urgency. And also, it's very clear that his security team is aware of that, which is why instead of, moving him quickly like they could with JD Vance, instead, a guy jumped in front of presumably what he thought might be bullets. It's not difficult to see why the capabilities of different people in this scenario might be different.
President Trump falls to the ground before regaining his footing and
he has argued that he did not fall to the ground. That's bullshit. He did fall to the ground. Okay.
Pulled from the ballroom roughly 30 seconds into the incident. Outside the ballroom, Speaker Mike Johnson is evacuated. Officers cross the stage and scan the crowd with weapons drawn, as Secret Service agents quickly fan out across the ballroom floor, climbing over chairs and tables as they make their way to administration officials.
Gunshots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
The room is packed, and the close arrangement of tables and chairs hindered agents trying to quickly evacuate administration officials. Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller and his wife Katie Miller exit to the right side of the dais, while agents escort Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. and his wife out of the opposite side of the room. Two more agents secure Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is then led to still another exit. In the minutes after the shooting, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, and Small Business Administration Administrator Kelly Loeffler are escorted down a hallway of the hotel. They're then followed by Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin. At 5 minutes to 9, video appears to show the suspect, covered by a foil blanket, lying on the ground, one floor above the ballroom. He would later be identified as Cole Tomas Allen, 31, from Torrance, California.
Our program is going to resume.
Just before 9 p.m., White House Correspondents Association
I think this is about all we need here. There's nothing about this that isn't explicable. Oh, how did he get through the security checkpoint? He ran like crazy, and they aren't doing heavy security for a official event, you know? The White House Correspondents' Dinner is not run by the White House. Like, it's run by the various press agencies, right? This isn't considered like a high security, high importance event, which maybe is a failing of like the security apparatus, but like it's not considered like the I don't know, the event you have to like lock down. It's in a fucking hotel room, you know, like it's in the not atrium, like, you know, fancy ballroom, if you will. We'll get there, of the hotel. A who's who of wonderful people, indeed. I heard Secret Service wanted to do more security and Trump shot it down. Yeah, maybe. Okay. The main thing to understand here is that I gotta be honest, the weirdest thing about all of this to me is the actual shooter and his manifesto. Especially if you're trying to make it make sense with like any kind of false flag narrative, right? Here is his manifesto. Hey, hello everybody. So I may have given a lot of people a surprise today. Let me start off by apologizing to everyone whose trust I abused. I apologize to my parents for saying I had an interview without specifying it was for Most Wanted. I apologize to my colleagues and students for saying I had a personal emergency. By the time anyone reads this, I probably most certainly do need to go to the ER, but can hardly call that not a self-inflicted status. I apologize to all of the people I traveled next to, all of the workers who handled my luggage, and all of the other non-targeted people at the hotel who I put in danger simply by being near. I apologize to everyone who was abused and or murdered before this, to all of those who suffered before I was able to attempt this, to all who may still suffer after, regardless of my success or failure. I don't expect forgiveness, but if I could have seen any other way to get this close, I would have taken it. Again, my sincere apologies. On why I did any of this. I am a citizen of the United States of America. What my representatives do reflects on me. I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Well, to be completely honest, I was no longer willing a long time ago, but this is the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it. While I'm discussing this, I'll go over my expected rules of engagement, probably in a terrible format, but I'm not military, so too bad. Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, they are targets prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. Secret Service are targets only if necessary and to be incapacitated non-lethally if possible. AKA I hope they're wearing body armor because center mass with shotguns messes up people who aren't. Hotel security, not targets if at all possible, AKA unless they shoot at me. Capitol Police, same as hotel security. National Guard, same as hotel security. Hotel employees, not targets at all. Guests, not targets at all. In order to minimize casualties, I'll be using buckshot rather than slugs. Less penetration through walls. This is the weirdest part about it. You know, like, this guy is apparently like someone who's gone to like Caltech. He's been to a lot of different like super smart people schools, and like he's won awards for his like his teaching. Like this guy is like, yeah, but I'm going to use shotgun shells. I'm going to use buckshot in a crowded room to minimize casualties. Okay. All right. That's not at all how minimizing casualties would work in this scenario, but let's get beyond that. I would still go through most everyone here to get to the targets if it were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people chose to attend a speech by a pedophile, rapist, and traitor and are thus complicit, but I really hope it doesn't come to that. Rebuttals to objections. It's like this guy ran it through fucking ChatGPT. Objection 1. As a Christian, you should turn the other cheek. Rebuttal. Turning the other cheek is for when you are yourself are oppressed. I'm not the person raped in a detention camp. I'm not the fisherman executed without trial. I'm not a school kid blown up or a child starved or a teenage girl abused by the many criminals in this administration. Trump turning the other cheek when someone else is oppressed is not Christian behavior. It is complicity in the oppressor's crimes. Objection 2. This is not a convenient time for you to do this. Rebuttal. I need whoever thinks this way to take a couple minutes and realize that the world isn't about them. Do you think that when I see someone raped or murdered or abused, I should walk on because it would be inconvenient for people who aren't the victim? This was the best timing and chance of success I could come up with. Objection 3. You didn't get them all. Rebuttal. Gotta start somewhere. Objection 4. As a half-black, half-white person, you shouldn't be the one doing this. Rebuttal. I don't see anyone else picking up the slack. Objection 5. Yield unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Rebuttal. The United States of America is ruled by law. The United States of America are ruled by the law, not by any one or several people. Insofar as representatives and judges do not follow the law, no one is required to yield them anything so unlawfully ordered. I would also like to extend my appreciation to a great many people, since I will not be likely able to talk with them again unless the Secret Service is astoundingly incompetent. And I guess they're incompetent because he's still alive. Thank you to my family, both personal and church, for your love over these 31 years. Thank you to my friends for your companionship over many years. Thank you to my colleagues over many jobs for your positivity and professionalism. Thank you to my students for your enthusiasm and love of learning. Thank you to the many acquaintances I've met in person and online for short interactions and long-term relationships, for your perspectives and inspiration. Thank you all for everything. Sincerely, Cold Force, Friendly Federal Assassin, Alan. P.S. Okay, now that all this happy stuff is done, what the hell was Secret Service doing? Sorry, gonna rant a bit here and drop the formal tone. Like, I expected security cameras at every bend, bugged hotel rooms, armed agents every 10 feet, metal detectors out the wazoo. What I got, who knows, maybe they're pranking me, is nothing. No damn security, not in transport, not in the hotel, not in the event. Like, the one thing I immediately noticed walking into the hotel is the sense of arrogance. I walked in with multiple weapons and not a single person there considers the possibility that I could be a threat. The security at the event is all outside, focused on protesters and current arrivals, because apparently no one thought about what happens if someone checks in the day before. Like, this level of incompetence is insane. I very sincerely hope it's corrected by the time this country actually gets competent leadership again. Like, if I was an Iranian agent instead of an American citizen, I could have brought a damn Madus in here and nobody would have noticed shit. Actually insane. Oh, and if anyone is curious about how doing something like this feels, it's awful. I want to throw up. I want to cry for all the things I wanted to do and never will, for all the people whose trust this betrays. I experience rage thinking about everything this administration has done. Can't really recommend it. Stay in school, kids. And that's the end of it. So that's the weirdest part about all this, guys. Like, the weirdest part is, like, this kind of guy has been radicalized to do this. You know, mild-mannered teacher doesn't really strike you as the kind of person who's about to take up arms against the president. So if you don't think this is set up, you think this was written in earnest? I do think this was written in earnest. I think it's deeply fucking weird. Human beings are weird little guys. I gotta be honest, like, I've read a lot of fan fiction, etc. Like, I've seen Chuck Tingle make an entire career out of his Tinglers, which includes such works as, you know, Pounded in My Butt by My Own Butt. And I gotta say, human beings are just weird little guys. And in this particular case, like, I think this is just a very weird guy. Yeah, why did he exclude Kash Patel specifically? I genuinely have no idea. Why would you exclude the FBI director? Everything about this attempt feels off. I will agree that it like everything about this is very weird, but I don't think it's actually that inexplicable. When was the last time someone ran fully armed past, like, a security checkpoint? Which, by the way, there was only one security checkpoint to get into this specific event. It hasn't happened. Maybe he's a Blue Lives Matter guy. I don't think so. I think he's, like, mild-mannered centrist, you know? And the main thing is, were they just lazy about security? Yes. Yes. I've heard that these sorts of libs with mild politics actually get super radicalized by Trump because he's a uniquely evil aberration to them, ruining the once good USA, while more engaged leftists see him as a culmination and escalation of the government's previous evils. I mean, that could very well explain, like, the wine mom libs who are out in the streets calling for a second French Revolution. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, running through the security to have like your attempt to assassinate the president, it's suicidal in nature to a degree that like it seems to have caught people by surprise. You know, you can see in the video like agents roll out of the way and immediately draw their guns, but like they were able to stop him before he was able to shoot the president. So there should have been many security checkpoints. And with my experience working for a federal agency, including direct experience with Secret Service during Obama's presidency, none of it adds up. I don't want to say it's definitely staged, but there's so many problems. My whole thing is that like Donald Trump's security has always been a fucking joke. You know, like the fact that he has like he frequently operates out of Mar-a-Lago, a club that just about anyone can get into, even if you aren't a member, you can like stroll in off the fucking beach. Like his security has always been a fucking joke. And I think that this is just showing that his security is a joke. Like, I don't think this is an aberration. I think this is just an indication that like many other things, Donald Trump has also degraded the capabilities of even the Secret Service and general security concerns. I feel like when you surround yourself with a bunch of yes men, you're kind of setting yourself up for situations exactly like this. Yeah, but in Butler, yeah, he went cheap. Exactly. I wonder if he wants to die a hero. I mean, the shooter definitely wanted to. Like, that's the impression you get from his manifesto, certainly. What is not impressive? What is unique about this entire incident to me is that all of this happened like a couple days ago, and the impact subsequent to that is non-existent. It's like this never happened. The impact socially and politically on from this particular event has been almost non-existent. Like, someone tried to kill the president of the United States, shots were fired, the entire event had to be shut down, like, Trump had to be evacuated, like, the entire chain of command was present in one room with terrible security, and no one's talking about it. Not really. Even, I gotta be honest, even like the conspiracy theorizing around it is kind of bored. And I think it's kind of born out of boredom that we are looking for more sense to this than the Trump administration is ass at everything. Why would they not be ass at security too? You know? The entire thing to me, from my perspective and my take on this, is that it's just incompetence. It is just the endemic incompetence of this administration that has percolated through every aspect of it. Okay?
Got a tip from a guy in an I support ICE hat. Sending to my favorite Minnesotan. Seems
Thank
appropriate.
You. Thank you very much, Professor Food, for the $5 super chat. Thank you for passing it along. So I guess this is where I'm at, because everything after this event has not really been focused on the assassination attempt or any of the underlying reasons for it. Let's take a little bit of a look here. Here is, Todd Blanche on Face the Nation expressing zero desire to do anything to prevent future assassination attempts against the president.
So the alleged shooter, as we just said, had multiple weapons in his possession. Here in the District of Columbia, open carry is not permitted. You just said he traveled from California across the country by train. At this point, are you thinking at the federal level of changing security protocols in any way to, for example, match on trains what you are expected to go through when you fly, where you do have to declare a weapon when you cross state lines? How did he travel by train without any challenge and arrive here in the nation's capital?
And look, this isn't about, in my mind, changing the law or making the laws more restrictive around possession of firearms. It appears he purchased these firearms the past couple years. We don't know how those firearms ended up in his possession in D.C. We can make some assumptions based upon what I just said about how he got to D.C. But I don't think the narrative here is about changing laws or making our laws more restrictive. This is about law enforcement who are doing their jobs and a suspect who tried to do something and failed miserably.
Yeah. Well, I'm not talking about changing the law in terms of possession of a firearm. I'm asking about crossing state lines with that firearm and arriving in the Capitol. If you try to fly, you do have to have your firearms declared in some way. You don't when you get on a train.
Well, look, you are talking about, I mean, if we're asking the question, that's talking about changing the laws, and I don't think that's something that we should be focused on right now in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, not a loophole.
There are lots of ways that. Yeah. So I mean, look, we also don't know. We don't have all the answers this morning. We're still looking into what happened, how he got the guns, if he got them legally. But what we do know is that he tried to use them. He did have 2 firearms and some knives on his person when he tried to use them, and he was stopped before he got anywhere near the president, before he got near any of us that were in the room at the time of that this occurred. And that's again, we can't overlook. And I'm not suggesting. You are, but we can't overlook the great work of the Secret Service last night.
No.
She's asking him a pretty straightforward question, which is the transportation of guns across state lines. And like, he's not willing to engage in that conversation at all. You know? Like, oh, should we have done anything to prevent this? I don't know. I think everyone did their jobs great. Like, what? There are so many systematic failures that have to happen for that assassination attempt to even happen. This guy is in charge of the Department of Justice. In your opinion, beyond his and his administration's grift, what's in store for us, the people, like us 99.99%? A microscopic batch of morons have turned our whole nation into a circus. Are we cool with fellow normal thinkers globally, or are we now being called out and shut down for not revolting? Or now what? I'm unsure what you mean by that. I'm what is going to be required of us is to organize, which is why I keep telling folks, you got to start turning up to your local political organizations. Turn up to your local Democrats, make them more progressive. Turn up to your local DSA, make them more effective. If you need help getting started doing that, this community can help. Join our Discord, !Discord in any of the chats. We'll get you a link. Join that. And we'll help get you started. We'll help you figure out how to get started with your local Dems and your local DSA. Okay? Super important to organize because, as you pointed out, we are the 99.99%. There are way more of us than there are of them, and we need to organize to set things right. We cannot sit back anymore knowing the correct things and simply not organize around those positions. Because when we stay separate, when we stay disorganized, that is when there is room for these people to take advantage of us. God, Todd Blanche looks fucking tired as hell, though. Let's see, what did Caroline Leavitt have to say about this assassination attempt?
Just from the rhetoric, you mentioned the First Lady and Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's comments were, Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. And he said this days before the shooting, but there does seem to be a normalization of rhetoric about assassinating.
That's not assassination rhetoric. Jimmy Kimmel talking about how the First Lady has the expectant glow of a widow. It's because people have been making jokes that she's waiting for Donald Trump to die for like the last 20 years. Like that's not talking about how he should be assassinated. To interpret it in this way is fucking nuts.
This particular president, how can this administration try to put an end to this?
Well, I think you heard it directly from the president on Saturday night, Aisha, that in his words, we need to recommit ourselves as a country to toning down the rhetoric and to unifying around what makes our country great. That's true of everyone who works in this White House.
This is a man, like I'm sorry, you're asking the man who just like a week or so ago threatened to wipe out an entire civilization. You're 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 trying to say it's other people with the who need the toned down rhetoric?
But as I said, it's also true of everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen. And when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things.
Why is Melania pretending she likes Trump? For his money.
And unfortunately, it's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist.
He led an insurrection against the United States of America. Yeah, he's a pretty big threat to democracy. He sent armed agents in masks into my city's streets and murdered my neighbors. He's built concentration camps across the country, but no. The people who criticize him, the rhetoric is the problem. It's not, the things he says and does.
And that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party.
Like, I'm sorry, you're saying that the guy who just an hour ago posted this at 3 o'clock in the morning needs to other people need to turn down their rhetoric? He posted this along with the caption, Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. What the yeah. No, guys. You all need to turn down the rhetoric. You don't get it. Everything is so stupid right now. It's so stupid right now.
Elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, we are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time. Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator...
I'm sorry. I want any kind of follow-up question to be did you think that he meant literal heads need to roll? Do you think Josh Shapiro thinks that actual members of the actual Trump administration should actually be beheaded? The level of fucking hurt crybaby nonsense here is off the charts.
Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids.
Yeah, because any criticism of their leader is clearly a call to violence. Couldn't just be criticizing people in a democracy is literally why you have a First Amendment right.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker. Never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. You have Rep. Presley saying, we'll see you in the streets. Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat.
Yeah, we'll see you in the streets because you're going out to non-violently protest. Just want to throw out there, here's a collection of headlines that has been going around, okay? I want you all to realize how full of shit this finger pointing at the left is when these are actual headlines that exist. Trump floats the idea of executing Joint Chiefs Chairman Milley. Trump and GOP Representative Gosar suggest Joint Chief boss Mark Milley deserves death. Trump suggests Liz Cheney should be shot. Trump blasts prosecutor he appointed for not giving Hunter Biden a death sentence. Trump posts video of truck showing hogtied Joe Biden. Not to mention, of course, again, this is the guy who threatened to wipe out an entire civilization not a week or two ago. But no, it's of course all the violent rhetoric of the left. Couldn't possibly be that guy who came onto the political scene pointing at people at his rallies, telling them to get the hell out, and talking about how people should beat them up. God, it's all so stupid. Anyway, let's hear what Kash Patel has to say about this.
President Trump has assembled the greatest law enforcement team in the history of America, as evidenced by the monumental reduction in crime. And I have full confidence that they will continue to deliver for him. President Trump has assembled the...
So good. So good. Man knows that his only hope of keeping his job is just absolutely licking Donald Trump's boots. Nonstop. My God. And of course, we have the final pivot to what all of this seems to be about. The only lasting bit of any kind of lasting impact from this particular assassination attempt. The goddamn ballroom.
On the opposite, they've incited violence, in my view. I mean, you have some of the most prominent figures in the House and the Senate on the Democrat side effectively, calling for war. I mean, they use those kinds of metaphors, and it incites violence because there are crazy people in society, and they get radicalized online. And so we've got to recognize that it's time to turn down the rhetoric. We've been saying this over and over, and not use that kind of language. I hope that this will be a sobering reminder for everybody about that very important cause. I'm grateful to Fetterman. He's right. The ballroom will be a solution for this, because it'll be on the most secure compound in the world. It won't have hotel rooms above it, and it'll have 7-inch thick glass, for example, on the windows. So it'll be a very safe environment to do events like this. We need a place. We have needed a place like that, and the president keeps pointing it out. On the
Just want to point out the White House Correspondents Association is not, in fact, under the control of the White House. It's a press event. They are under no obligation to hold events in the White House ballroom. Just as an FYI. The coordination on this messaging has been crazy. I mean, the coordination is just that the White House gives marching orders to Congress, and then they say, how far are we marching, boss? And the White House then gives marching orders to the influencers, and they all go out in unison to talk about how great a ballroom would be. Like, it's very clear that the Trump White House is keeping a tight grip on what influencers and members of Congress are allowed to say. And that order has gone all the way down. But, Mike Johnson in particular is out here trying to restore some semblance of seriousness to the Republicans as they all clamor for why Donald Trump needs a new ballroom.
They have full-on Trump derangement syndrome, okay? And it informs how they see the world and how they react, and how irresponsible they are now is on full display for the whole country. I hope voters remember this in the fall. You got to keep the grown-ups in charge, and that's the Republicans.
The real grown-ups need a ballroom, okay? Just a gigantic ball pit, if you will. It has to have secret facilities underneath it, of course. So you're required to make the ballroom a ball pit. And that's really what the hallmark of adulthood, It's so stupid. This might be a little disrespectful. I have a very hard time taking this seriously when that man started the dumbest war in American history that will be responsible for millions starving. Yep, that is exactly what is happening. You aren't alone, and we're gonna get to kind of my ultimate point with all of this. We got a little bit longer until we get to that ultimate point, so bear with me here, okay? Because a lot of interesting things have come to light as a result of what happened here. Donald Trump gave an interview to 60 Minutes, and that interview, original interview, is about 13 minutes long, and there's about a minute and a half I'd like to zoom in on here. And then we'll look at the full 40-minute interview that got cut down to 13 minutes. Let's take a listen here to this minute and a half.
The so-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, "Administration officials, they are targets." And he also wrote this: "I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes." What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Oh, you
I'm not a
do you think he
pedophile.
was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself,
the other side of the plate? What the fuck?
you know, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, you know, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
I just, the moment here where she is like,
Atrioc, finance bro, made a pretty good observation in that political violence is becoming more common due to unmet expectations, especially educated people seeing their job and life opportunities dry.
well, I mean, yes, that is part of what's going on here. Political violence doesn't happen in a society where things are going well, generally speaking. What's interesting about this interview exchange is, number one, he does assume that the shooter is talking about him when Donald Trump isn't named in that manifesto. The shooter just talks about, you know, people, you know, he doesn't want a rapist, pedophile, traitor's blood on his hands anymore. Donald Trump just immediately, without any kind of observation by the interviewer here, reads into it as, oh, that's me. Like Donald Trump read rapist, pedophile, traitor and thought, that me for real, you know?
This is what happens when you only are awake long enough to watch the third quarter of the Beauty and the Beast remake and haven't seen the original.
Oh, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. But like, he's admitting here that he sees himself in that shooter's note as being like a rapist, pedophile, traitor. That's interesting to me. I think that's odd. I think it's revealing. And like, to be frank, we all immediately clocked. Well, of course we all did, but he did too, which is the interesting part. That's the revealing part. It's a mask off moment. Like, also, someone compiled a transcription over at Decoding Fox News. I'm going to link this in chat for you all to take a look at. I highly recommend you read through the entire thing. But basically, it's a comparison between the 13 minutes of what 60 Minutes actually aired from this interview and the 40 or the full 40-minute long interview that they put behind a paywall, and what was cut out of the 13 minutes that everyone got to see. It's a really interesting read. Highly recommend. But you see what's broadcast and what's not included, right? God, it's so interesting to see how insane he is in what they cut out, because Barry Weiss and company are very clearly trying to put him in the best light possible, but he's just fucking crazy. Okay? Here's O'Donnell. I want to get to all of those details and also walk through this. What happened last night? But first, this appears to be the third attempted assassination on your life. The first in Butler, the second, of course, on the golf course in Florida. Why do you think so many people are maybe trying to kill you? So I've said it numerous times, and I actually, because of the position I'm in, I've done quite a bit of research into the word assassination. Terrible word. And they go after consequential presidents. They go after presidents that do things. If you look at what I've done, we've turned this country around. We've taken a country that was actually a dead country. It was dying very rapidly. And it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've had a skirmish, a war, whatever you want to call it, with Venezuela. We won that very decisively. And we now have a great relationship with Venezuela. It's been a very profitable relationship. We're in Iran right now. Other presidents should have done it, but they never chose to do it. They should have. They made a terrible mistake by not doing it. It's tougher now than it would have been 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, because, you know, thousands and thousands of missiles and everything else. We didn't do the B-2 bomber attack. That alone was a big deal. the killing of Soleimani, which I did in my first term, was a big deal. But when you're you're a consequential, when you do things, a lot of things, and things that work out very well for your country. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. McKinley was assassinated. McKinley made the country very rich. People don't realize it. Then Teddy Roosevelt went out and spent the money that was made by McKinley, but it was very consequential actually, but he was assassinated. So like that's fucking nonsense. The question was, why are so many people trying to kill you? And he just like proceeded to like fucking word vomit like nonstop until she interrupts him to say, you mentioned, Mr. President, consequential, and your policies are also controversial. Is that part of it? He's like, well, no, I don't really think so. And like goes on and on. Like, it is wild to me what actually gets cut out here, you know? Here is the transcription of that scene I showed you, right? I was never again, excuse me, you shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview. O'Donnell, the other thing that he wrote, Trump, you're disgraceful. O'Donnell, the other thing in the manifesto that I think is worth looking at in terms of determining his motive is that he was staying at the hotel since Friday. He checked in and he said he had cased the place, and he wrote, what the hell is the Secret Service doing? And he wrote this quote, I expected security cameras at every been bugged, hotel rooms, armed agents every 10 feet, metal detectors out the wazoo. What I got is nothing. He wrote, like, this level of incompetence is insane. Sir, you've already had 2 attempted Trump. Well, he was pretty incompetent too, because he got caught, and he got caught pretty easily. So I'd say he was pretty incompetent too. You know, I can take any event having to do with security or anything else. I can always find fault. Not included, Trump. No matter what, I can take a baseball team that won the game 18-0 and say they should have played better. What are you talking about? He's talking about himself being like a baseball team manager. He's never managed a baseball team. I do encourage you guys to read this entire thing. The cognition decline is real. It's genuinely shocking. He's just old man rambling. God, if you put a mannequin in front of him and like took away his contacts, he'd talk at that thing for nonstop and then sexually assault it, you know? That's where we're at with his mental state. Now, very clearly, after all of this went down, as people noted before, like, the word from on high came down that you all have to be, as a result of this assassination attempt, pushing the ballroom. And I say the word has clearly come down because not only is Mike Johnson constantly talking about the ballroom now, I shit you not, Republicans threw an entire press conference dedicated to why Donald Trump needs a ballroom.
Let me tie one electrical cord to the question to what we're talking about today. Why are we here? The Democrats have used rhetoric referring to ICE agents as the Gestapo, Trump's secret police. They can't help themselves. Like, this is a real sickness. And what we're saying is this has to be addressed. At a minimum, we have to have a safe place to protect.
Okay, so because Democrats are actively comparing the Gestapo, a force that would come into communities and disappear people to put them in concentration camps, something that ICE agents are currently doing, as they are also executing people in the street, all while wearing masks, by the way. But because people have said ICE agents are like the Gestapo and made that comparison, we need a ballroom for Donald Trump. That doesn't make sense.
The President of the United States and the cabinet officials, if they want to gather, or there's a state dinner, or a crowd more than like 100 people. But this is now, in order to appease the more radicalized base, the language that comes out on the Senate floor, I'm not talking about on like Morning Joe, like on the Senate floor. You guys are there, you hear this. This is well beyond what has been acceptable forever. And we're at where we're at.
And again, the guy that they're talking about, the head of their party, threatened to wipe out an entire civilization. The president of the United States is gleefully posting like every day about bombing schools and power plants and bridges, fucking war crimes.
And y'all remember, this stuff was operating. I mean, ICE and CBP are operating. And the fact that Democrats didn't sit down until 48 days into the shutdown means that they could care nothing about the guardrails. To Senator Schmidt's point, it was everything about the
ICE and CBP aren't forces that would ever stop someone from doing that attempt.
Political issue. They didn't want to take a vote for ICE. I mean, it's insane where we are, and it's got to stop.
Senator Graham, as budget chairman, there are some House members who, after this event happened, suggested adding the ballroom to the reconciliation package, but that might potentially cause problems over here.
I would like to take it to the floor and see if we can. Again, it's supposed to be built in 28. It's actually going to benefit future presidents more than President Trump. So.
You can't get it done if the Democrats don't come forward the next day or so, and they still sound like they're blocking it.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to.
Be open to adding it to reconciliation?
I want to get it done. Yeah, I want to get it done yesterday, and I'd like to do it as a freestanding bill with an offset. Let's give it a chance, and if we fail, we'll have to go to Plan B. Yeah.
Our special boy, he needs his ballroom. You don't understand. You don't understand. He needs his ballroom. He needs his ballroom so bad that Donald Trump seemingly personally authored the motion filed in federal court to try and get the ballroom rolling. I'm just going to read it verbatim to you guys here. Defendants Rule 62.1 motion for an indicative ruling dissolving the court's injunction in the National Trust for Historic Preservation versus the National Park Service. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is a beautiful name, but even their name is fake because they add the words "in the United States" to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I had to say fake because it's in all caps. Because it makes it sound like a governmental agency, which it is not. In fact, the United States refused to continue funding it in 2005 because they strongly disagreed with their mission and objectives. They are very bad for our country being capitalized. They stop many projects that are worthy and hurt many others. In this case, they are trying to stop one that is vital to our national security and the safety of all presidents. The words are randomly capitalized. Like, this is Donald Trump definitely personally wrote this. The safety of all presidents of the United States, both current and future, their families, staff, and cabinet members. They were asked by the United States military not to bring this suit because of the top secret nature of the important facility being built. They were shown detailed plans and specifications of this knitted, unified, and cohesive structure by top officers and leaders about the military and Secret Service. But this did not deter them because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, commonly referred to as TDS, as noted by Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. They are represented by the lawyer for Barack Hussein Obama, Gregory Craig. The lower section of this building does not work without the upper section, and likewise, the upper section of the building does not work without the lower. They are designed to operate as one integrated unit. As an example, one venting system, one electrical system, one plumbing system, one security system, one air conditioning and heating system, one elevator connector, and very importantly, one structural steel and enforced concrete system, and more. Even the bulletproof windows and glass and the heavy steel, drone-proof roof protect what is below. With such a facility, it would have been impossible for an attack like that which took place last Saturday evening in D.C., when an attempted assassin armed with a shotgun, pistol, and knives charged through a security checkpoint at the Washington Hilton in an attempt to assassinate President Donald J. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and members of the president's cabinet and senior staff during the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The Secret Service fortunately neutralized the assassin before he could reach the ballroom. However, Saturday's narrow miss, which marks the third assassination attempt on President Trump since 2024, confirms what should have been already obvious. Presidents need a secure space for large events that currently does not exist in Washington, D.C., and this court's injunction stalling this president cannot defensively continue for the sake of the safety of President Trump, future presidents and their families, cabinets, and staff. Defendants thus request that the court issue an indicative blah, 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 blah. Okay. It's all so fucking stupid, guys. It's all so stupid. But you know what? Republicans are running with it anyway. When has it ever stopped them before?
On this idea of $400 million being appropriated to build this ballroom for the purposes of national security. And this idea that by the time it's built, President Trump might be able to use it once or twice, but then future presidents for decades to come will have the advantage of using it.
Yeah, the next time that we have a Democrat president and Democrats who are going to receptions and parties at the White House, they're going to love the big, beautiful ballroom that Donald Trump built for them and for the country. I mean, it's something that I think we can all look forward to and celebrate. I mean, there are other bills as well in the Senate that just move the permitting process along and get this moving forward. There are appropriations for public funding of it. I mean, it is a public building and the White House is a treasure. So I don't know what that price tag or the dollar figure will be, but the ballroom.
The White House is such a treasure. They had to rip down part of it to build this ballroom. Typically what you want to do with the treasure is destroy it.
It's going to be something that all Americans can enjoy and appreciate, and Democrats or Republicans, those who enjoy it at the White House, are going to love it in the future. So a lot of good reasons.
Everyone's going to love it. You don't understand. People across America love the idea of Donald Trump having a new ballroom. Just like all Americans across the country think that little Timmy deserves a Nintendo Switch too, for getting a whole D- on his latest test.
It's very selfish of Trump wanting the ballroom all for himself.
Right? A ballroom for every home.
For it, President Trump is of all of the things that he's effective at and he does well, building beautiful buildings is one of them, and a big beautiful ballroom is going to be great.
He doesn't build the fucking buildings. He doesn't build the buildings that he's not designing them. He's not building them. Like, fuck, get off his dick. It's embarrassing. This guy's a senator from Indiana. Now, why is all of this happening, right? Why has this event had so little impact? Well, I think a lot of it goes back to this article by Greg Sargent over on the New Republic. Greg posted this like about a week ago at this point. The incredible shrinking MAGA. How far can MAGA continue to get if it keeps purging itself down to its ever more molten core? Donald Trump appears to be bent on finding out. And like, the breakdown in this article that Greg puts forward is essentially that, like, Donald Trump is hemorrhaging support in a way that is difficult to put into words. And I'll link it here for you guys, right? Donald Trump is very noteworthily losing support among non-college white voters. You know? Trump's overall approval among them is now slightly underwater at 49 to 51%. A majority of non-college white voters are now rejecting him. Do you have any idea what it takes to get to that point? Like, we are, I mean, we are, he's losing it. He's losing it. The one demographic in which he experiences a majority of support is among rural voters, and that's at 51% support him. That's it. That is his best demographic right now. And even that is slipping. Like, it's going to fucking tank when they start seeing what fertilizer costs are going to be. I don't know, guys. All I'm trying to say is that at a certain point, his unpopularity becomes devastating. Anything that he can try to do is, at best, hemorrhaging support because he's the least popular guy ever to be president. And, like, we're in the middle of a national crisis in a war that he created. And, like, he's ranting and raving about a fucking ballroom. And not only that, he just went on television and had his I am not a crook moment about being a pedophile. Like, one of the most famous things Nixon ever said, I am not a crook. Donald Trump just recreated that moment with pedophile instead of crook. It's crazy. And all of this is overshadowing the fact that, like, he's lost so much support among normal people, among everyday people, among hardcore conservative demographics, that, like, people just don't care
Jack,
anymore.
I don't think you understand how important the presidential underground roller ballerina under the ballroom is to national security.
Yeah, I keep trying to tell people the importance of having, a coliseum built deep underground, at least a mile underground, so that we can continue the blood sports when the apocalypse hits. But no one will listen to me. But, like, Donald Trump is sitting here completely out of touch with people, even completely out of touch with his most insane base.
Trump's name is already toxic. He is only propped up by media propaganda. He'd be dead in the water, metaphorically speaking, of course, 5 months ago, if not for the media.
I mean, true. Unironically, like, Donald Trump is struggling. But why don't people care about this assassination attempt? It's also because he's poisoned the information ecosystem. Like, when they're constantly spewing out that's fake news, those are it's lies, and then he's simultaneously lying all the time, every other word. Like, it's not surprising that people are just like, oh, there's another assassination attempt that seemed really weird. Well, it's either fake or, he's lying about it again. Who can say? Like, people are just over his shit. People are over the lies. People are inventing, like, alternate realities where things are more interesting. And, like, essentially, I think what's happening is that, like, people are inventing this idea that it's like a false flag, in part because it's more interesting if it is. It's more interesting if there is a false flag that has happened. And also, it's less scary because it means that there's a level of competence at play capable of carrying out a false flag. And I think that there's a certain amount of comfort in that, as opposed to the reality, which is just that the people running our country right now are absolute moron dipshits. The more boring thing happened, which is just incompetent guy tried to do something. Incompetent guy tried to do a poorly conceived plan. It's a really weird variant of the boy who cried wolf anecdote. Exactly. Not to mention the fact that, like, a lot of older folks are living in, like, these AI misinformation bubbles. Like, it's the information ecosystem is dying. I do not think this administration is capable of actually pulling off any kind of successful false flag. I think the far more obvious and far more real thing that's going on here is that this guy's deeply unpopular, and even an assassination attempt can't get him to, like, bump up in the polls. Even an assassination attempt can't get people to really, like, believe anything he says anymore. Like, he's been lying nonstop about the Iran negotiations. And, like, that's very obvious. It's very obvious to anyone paying attention that he's manipulating markets to make money. That all comes with some, like, costs that are going to come back to bite all of us. That's true, Spleen. The conspiracy theory that, like, this was a false flag assassination attempt solely for the purpose of, like, getting his ballroom passed, that is funny enough to believe for the comedy. I will give you that. You're just an anti-ballroom bigot. True. All right, folks, get organized. Join your local Dems. Join your local DSA. We need to move this country to left, and the only way we do that is by organizing. We cannot sit back and wait for other people to do it for us. We actually have to get out there and do the work. So get organized. Use Discord in any of the chats. You can join our Discord. We can help set you up with your local Dems and your local DSA. And also, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words really help in the algorithm for whatever reason. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is non-tucking lingerie. It's sexy. It fits. It is great. Go check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.